Hello everyone and welcome to our virtual Cert Prepare to Teach for Year 2, where the focus will be assessment preparation and support for the non-exam assessment and the exam and assessment. Before we dive in though, I just wanted to start with a couple of quick introductions. I'm Kelly Johnson and I'm a Provider Development Officer here at NCFE, and I'm also joined today by Beth Hudspeth, who's also a Provider Development Officer. And we support providers, in particular schools across the country, with ongoing Certs, onboarding, training and CPD. And those of you who may not have heard of NCFE before, we are an educational charity and awarding organisation that specialises in vocational education. At post 16, this includes our study programmes and T-levels, and at 14 to 16, this is our Cert Technical Awards. So the webinar today will provide a recap of what has been covered in the teaching, learning and formative assessment during Year 1, before covering how to prepare for the NEA in Year 2, including what to expect from our quality assurance process. We will also share our top tips on how to prepare for the external assessment, including some revision strategies and techniques that will help boost your learners' exam performance. We will also share a summary of the resources and the support that is available from NCFE and our partners that will support you and your centres.
As we're at the end of the academic year, we thought it would be really helpful to spend a little bit of time reflecting on your first year so far. So considering the following: 3 things that went well, 2 key successes, and 1 thing you would do differently. Make your own reflection notes. What did go well? What were your key successes? And what would you do differently? So now I'd like to provide a summary of Year 1. All the new Certs have a single unit structure. They contain 1 mandatory unit with a number of content areas sitting within a single unit. The content that is assessed in the EA and the NEA will be sampled from across the full breadth of the qualification. This slide shows the content areas from subject area of food and cookery. Please do check the qualification specification for the other subject content areas. This is where you will also find the indicative content and teaching guidance that will support your delivery. Food and cookery comprises of 7 content areas, and all content is mandatory and must be taught. It is essential when planning for teaching and throughout delivery that the interdependencies and links build across the content areas of the qualification and are highlighted and reinforced. The teaching content does not have to be delivered in a linear way. The unit contents are independent in knowledge, skills, and concepts. Teachers may take a synoptic teaching approach across the qualification. This concept goes into more detail in our Year 1 Prepare to Teach events. They are now available to access and view on our Cert playlist, which is on our NCFE YouTube channel. This slide shows a typical 2-year delivery model. This is only a suggestion, and it is to help illustrate the new structure so you can visualize how it's going to work for you. It essentially follows a very similar structure to that of GCSEs, in that the first year is for delivery, where there are no summative assessments, and the second year is for the assessment year. It has been designed this way to allow the first year of delivery to be focused entirely on teaching the content of the qualification. This really allows you to focus on ensuring the learners are building up knowledge and skills, and gives you as much time possible to teach the qualification content so that your learners are ready for their assessment. We release the NEA briefs on the 1st of September each year. It can also be administered from the 1st of September as long as all the content has been taught. The final marks you will need to submit back to the portal by the 30th of April each year, in which then the learner evidence will be moderated. It can be delivered over 3 years, as some centres might want to start delivering it in Year 9. although we do recommend a 2-year delivery model so that it coincides with GCSEs. If you decide to deliver over 3 years, learners can be registered in year and you will be prompted to book the assessment series at the time of registration. Formative assessment can help you track your learners' progress in the first year of studying this qualification. Keeping a record of each formative assessment results will allow you to monitor your learners' ongoing progress, predict a final grade, and identify if any or further interventions are required. There are various sources of data for performance indicators such as end of topic tests, discussions with learners to assess their depth and breadth of knowledge of the subject content, homework and independent study tasks, engagement with practical activities, outcomes of practical tasks, performance at Key Stage 3, teacher observation during practical tasks using the NEA practical assessment criteria. There are also many resources such as learning roundups in the teacher materials, sample assessment materials, and prepare to teach activities that are available on our website to further support your formative assessment. Other performance indicators can include the mark scheme with mark ranges. It is worth noting that the range of marks in the mark scheme can also be performance indicators. For example, 7 to 12 marks would be a distinction, strong level 2 merit. 4 to 6 marks would be a merit, strong level 2 pass. And 0 to 3 marks would be in the level 1 range. Another useful way to track your learners' progress is to use the overall grading descriptors in the specification. The legacy model, CER, are still available for some subject areas, as the EA is also out of 80 marks. These can be used as a guide for your mock exams. Please note, though, they are only to be used as a guide and in no way represent the grade boundaries will be in the new model. In our Year 1 Prepare to Teach session, we go into a little more detail about formative assessment, and on the screen now you can see a range of methods. Take a few moments to consider. Which do you use? Do you use a wide range of activities? Do your students get assessment fatigue? Thinking more broadly, could you develop your practice to make things easier for you or better for your students? I know I have my favourite methods as a teacher, but I need to be mindful that all learners are different and respond differently. So making things fun, diversifying the approaches, and reviewing the impact and success of my approach is really important. Take a few moments to consider and complete a plan doing review. Think about what you've already done, what you would like to do by the end of today, and by the end of next week, and then by the end of September.
Thanks for that, Beth. So over the next few slides, I'd now like to talk in a little bit more detail about the NEA and what you can do to prepare for it. A little recap of the NEA. It is a practical project that your learners undertake under controlled and supervised conditions. It has a set number of tasks that are to be completed in a set number of hours. The NEA is externally set by NCFE, and there will be only one attempt at the NEA per session, so there is no resubmission opportunity. NCFE does recognise that reasonable adjustments may be required for assessments, and this information is available in our access arrangements and reasonable adjustments policy, along with our special considerations policy on our website. So on this slide is an example of the NEA summary from child development and care in early years. In all subject areas, the NEA is either 60% or 50%, and it's 50% in child development and care in early years and health and social care, and this has a set total of marks. A different NEA brief will be released every September, and it targets assessment objectives AO1, AO2, AO3, AO4, and AO5. The subject-specific tutor guidance has been produced in order to support the delivery of the Level 1-2 technical awards for both the EA and the NEA. It is not intended to replace the specification documents, but should be used in conjunction with them to support the successful delivery and completion of the qualification and assessments. You'll find these documents in the support materials section of the qualification page on our website. The NEA will be electronically available on the 1st of September in the year of certification, and the final NEA marks are to be submitted to the portal by the 30th of April. All teaching must be complete prior to accessing the assessment, and the learner must be booked onto the NEA associated with the year of completion. Prior to commencing the formal set hours for the NEA time, learners should be allocated 2 hours of preparation and research time. During this time, learners may have access to the project brief, but may not access the NEA tasks. This 2-hour period is entirely open book, where learners can access their teaching and learning materials, textbooks, the internet, and other published materials. From this, they should develop a research support pack, which can be used as their source of information when completing the NEA. This is the only support material that is permitted during the completion of the NEA tasks, of course, unless otherwise stated within each task instructions, and then must be submitted to the tutor at the end of the session and kept secure. The material developed in the planning, preparation, and research time may not be submitted as evidence, as this will be considered as malpractice. The research pack should be no more than 4 sides of A4 in font size 12, and this can be either handwritten or electronic. Some tasks within the NEA permit the use of internet access to support the completion of the task. Learners will be required to submit a copy of their internet browsing history to ensure that the controls around the internet use are adhered to. Where the NEA allows for research requiring the use of the internet, learners must also reference the sources in their work, and learners must cite the sources of information within their NEA. There is a useful table in Section 8 of the tutor guidance that will show you if the use of the internet is permitted and or if the internet browsing history is required. There is also specific guidance for each task within the NEA, and the inclusion of these tasks is to illustrate the proposed structure and timings, the required resources, in addition to the pack developed in the preparation and research time, and any additional requirements around delivery or controls. Within the regulations for the conduct of the NEA section, instructions are provided on the correct administration of the internally assessed NEA. NEA tasks must be issued one at a time and in the correct sequence to appropriately meet the requirements of the task in terms of resources and organisation of the learning environment. All learners should start each task at the same time to promote fairness and prevent unfair learner advantage and aid centre manageability. Learners can rework their evidence at any point during the supervised sessions, but supervisors must not give any feedback to a learner on how a task or area can be improved. Learners' work must not be assessed, marked, or internally quality assured during supervised sessions. And learners will have one opportunity to sit the NEA each session. Therefore, if a learner does not achieve, they will need to be re-registered to sit the NEA and the EA in the next series. There are sample assessment materials available for the NEA, and these are for you to use as practice projects, and you can fit these in whenever it works best for you, be that summer of year 10, January of year 11, or whenever you feel it is most beneficial for your learners. This is an example of the sample of the non-exam assessment for health and fitness, and it consists of an introduction, what synoptic assessment is, information for learners including the assessment objectives, marks and weighting, the project brief, the assessment tasks, and the learner declaration. There is also a sample mark scheme, and this consists of the assessment tasks and the associated mark scheme, including the descriptors, the available marks, and the indicative content for each of the assessment objectives. Sample assessment materials, including the mark schemes, are available for you to access on the NCFE website on the subject-specific VCERT page. NEAs cannot be adapted in any way by the centre, and this is to ensure that assessments remain fit for purpose and ensure learners are not disadvantaged or advantaged. It also allows us to standardise mark schemes and removes any inconsistencies across centres and learners as changes made may impact on the validity of the assessment. Centres will need to plan the sessions to allow learners access to the full completion time available at the end of teaching and delivery. The assessment must not take place until the teaching and learning of all the content has been completed. Assessor instructions must be read out to the learners prior to the internal assessment, and supervisors must read out Appendix 1 at the beginning of every supervised session, which will be included in the tutor guidance document. The centre must check the subject's tutor-specific guide to confirm if the use of computers or electronic devices are permitted for the NEA. And you must ensure all learner evidence and assessment materials are stored in a secure location at the end of each of the timetabled sessions. And access to this storage must be restricted to authorised personnel only. Learners must not be able to access their work outside of these timetabled sessions, and no work can be completed at home or in catch-up sessions. Learners and teachers must also not discuss the assessment brief online or post any assessment material online until the materials have been retired. The declaration must be signed by the learner and the assessor at the end of the assessment to authenticate their work. And the form will be found at the end of the NEA brief and must be stored securely. Where assessment requires images or the use of videos of learners and/or participants, the GDPR consent form must also be completed by the learner and any other participants. And again, this form can be found at the end of the learner copy of the NEA. After the final assessment session, the learner may not have any further access to their assessment, and it must be securely stored by the centre for marking. All submitted evidence must be authenticated and attributable to the learner. Learners must be made aware of the importance of this and how it may impact their overall grade if evidence is found not to be the learner's own work. Centres must use the descriptors and marking guidance provided by NCFE to assess the learner's work. And as we've already said, learner evidence needs to be internally quality assured and final marks to be submitted for moderation by the 30th of April each year. Centres will be submitting marks rather than grades that will go forward for moderation. And once the portal closes, the centre will not be able to amend any marks, and it is these marks that are then taken forward with the moderator's marks from the sample to determine the final marks for learners. Now, you will be very pleased to hear that there is Prepare to Assess training that is available, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about those details on the next slide. Centres will be provided with training opportunities for how to administer and assess the NEA, including the application of mark schemes. They will provide valuable information to help you understand our mark schemes and also supporting you to run your own standardisation sessions prior to the assessment window opening. Now, these events are a great opportunity to expand your knowledge and understanding of the VCERT Technical Awards and are suitable for assessors and IQAs delivering on these qualifications. Attendance to these sessions will also be checked as part of your annual monitoring review. So firstly, the administration training will cover the activities required to deliver and assess our Level 1-2 Technical Awards, including key dates, completion of assessment, paperwork, your roles and responsibilities, and what you can expect from NCFE. Secondly, that I've already mentioned, the Prepare to Assess training. This will help develop your understanding of the grading criteria when assessing your learners' responses to the internally assessed units, and it will also provide valuable information to help you understand our mark schemes. And a copy of this recording from these sessions will be available following the session to access on demand, and sample portfolios will be made available in due course. So a little bit about quality assurance. The assessor will assess and mark all learner evidence for the NEA in line with the mark schemes that are provided by NCFE. The assessor will also complete the assessor to learner feedback form, which is available in the assessment pack. And again, the brief will be released on the 1st of September each year. As the NEA is moderated, the centre's IQA efforts need to be focused on upfront standardisation, and centres do need to apply their own IQA policy or processes based on the outcome of standardisation activities that they complete to satisfy their own internal quality assurance. Standardisation will ensure that assessor judgments are in line with the qualification specification and criteria. In line with JCQ guidance, centres should inform learners of their centre assessed marks before marks are submitted to NCFE, and this is in order to allow any internal centre appeals. Centres should make it clear, though, to learners that any centre assessed marks are subject to change through the moderation process. Once the centre has submitted marks to the portal, learners will then be selected for sampling and their evidence will be reviewed by a moderator. Moderation will take place remotely and feedback will be provided on results day in a final moderation report that can be accessed on the portal. All centres with active registrations on any qualification will have an annual monitoring review to review policies and procedures. Now, this is not subject specific, it is centre based and it will be annual. There is a full section on preparing for your annual monitoring review on our website. And if you do have any queries about anything that we've discussed today on quality assurance, then please do contact external quality assurance directly and they'll be more than happy to help. Okay, so then you will be asked then, you're then asked to submit marks for each of your learners on the portal, and we will use these marks then to select learners to be sampled based on the JCQ sampling strategy. A sample will be requested based on stage 3, and you'll then be able to view learners that are selected for sampling on the portal. Learners selected for sampling will be visible on the portal the day after the window closes, and centres will then be required to view the sampling plan on the portal and upload learner evidence for sampled learners within 48 hours. Guidance on how to do this can be found in the portal user guide on our website. Moderation will take place remotely, and again, feedback will be provided on results day in a final moderation report, which can be accessed on the portal. Please refer to our user guide to remote moderation and preparing for moderation on our website. During the moderation, the moderator will assess the sample. Following moderation, the moderation process and the outcome of your quality checks, one of the following 3 outcomes will be applied to your cohort. The first one is the provider mark, which will confirm the provider mark has been accepted. The regressed mark means that the regress mark has been accepted. And thirdly, the moderator marks means that it's the moderator mark that has been accepted. You will receive a moderation report to explain the outcome of the moderation activity, along with areas performed well and the areas for development. For further information and guidance, please do refer to Preparing for a Moderation Review on our website. So we've just looked at the NEA, and now I'd just like to talk a little bit more about preparing for the EA. To summarise the external assessment, or the EA, it is 40% of the technical award for all subject areas except for child development and care in early years and health and social care, where it is 50% of the technical award. It is a written examination that is externally set by NCFE, and learners have 1.5 hours to complete it, and it is graded out of 80 marks. There is a mixture of multiple choice, short answer and extended response questions, and it targets assessment objectives AO1, AO2 and AO3. The examination date is May-June time each year, and there is only one attempt at the exam. Booking for the external assessment is upon registration, and please do refer to the external assessment timetable on our website for confirmation of the exact exam dates, which are always published a year in advance of the actual external assessment. There are 3 main types of questions on the external assessment, and where possible, they have been set within the context of the subject with real-world case studies. And the examples here that I'm going to use are from various subject areas across the VCERT technical awards. So the first type of question is multiple choice, and they're usually 1 or 2 marks, and multiple choice questions in the main cover assessment objective 1. The second type of question is short answer, and these are usually around 3 to 6 marks. And the third type of question is extended response. Extended response questions are usually worth 6 marks or more, but the examples on this slide are a 9-mark question and a 12-mark question. For our VCERT qualifications, you are required to make a booking for the external assessment at the time of registration. You will be prompted to select an external assessment date before completing the registration in the portal. Please refer, as I've already said, to our external assessment timetable for assessment dates and times, as well as results release dates. On our website, you will also find the external assessment regulations and guides and our QCID document. Also, our excess arrangements, reasonable adjustments and special considerations policies will be available to access on our website. And you'll also find further support and guidance in the subject-specific tutor guidance, which I mentioned earlier in the webinar. Okay, so we will be talking a little bit more generally about revision strategies and techniques in more detail in the next section. But so that you can get underway with preparing your learners for the external assessment early, we thought it'd be useful to remind you that we have our learner workbooks with knowledge checks in them, so you can regularly check their progress in knowledge and understanding. HODA are producing revision guides for some subject areas. The Health and Fitness Revision Guide is available now to order, and the other subject areas, Business and Enterprise, Child Development and Care in Early Years, and Food and Cookery, are expected in autumn 2023, and this also includes a revision guide for engineering. Please do check HODA's website for the most up-to-date information and expected results release dates. If you have delivered any of our VCERTs before, there are assessment materials that are still available to access for the Model 3 and Model 4 VCERT qualifications, which were on QualHub but have now been integrated into the NCFE website. And you can use the search for our qualifications function on our website and select VCERTs as the feature and press search. Please note, do check the qualification accreditation number to ensure that you're on the right qualification page. And these resources are also available to download for free, but you may well need a portal login to access these, and it is your exams officer that can usually help with this. And we will also hopefully be providing a learner revision guide and anticipate to have this available by early in 2024 for all subject areas. And as with the NEA, there are sample assessment materials for the EA, and again, these are for you to use as mocks, and you can fit these in whenever it works best for you. This is an example of the sample of the examined assessment for health and fitness, and it consists of learner instructions, information and details, and the questions, which are divided up into sections with marks to be awarded for each question. The mark scheme is also available, and it will consist of the marking guidelines, the assessment objectives, and the answers, including which assessment objective the question refers to, and the marks to be awarded. This is then replicated for all the questions in each section. For the higher mark questions, the mark scheme details the level, the marks that can be awarded, the descriptor for each assessment objective, and the indicative content to be included in the learner's answer. The last page contains an assessment objective grid for each section. And as with the NEA, sample assessment materials for the EA, including the mark schemes, are available for you to access on the NCFE website on the VCERT subject-specific page.
Thank you, Kelly. So now we've gone through the NEA and the EA, I'd like to now talk a little more in detail about the revision strategies and the techniques that your learners may find useful. When deciding on revision strategy, It is useful to think about the most effective ways that you learn. You may want to combine different techniques to create your own revision strategy. Revision quick tips for your learners. You can share these techniques with your learners. Course boosters. Remind learners to attend sessions after school or lunchtime. Recap. Recap at the end of lessons and remind your learners to recap on subject topic after lessons or at the end of the day as homework. Subject terminology. Show learners examples of flashcards showing active recall. Remind learners to produce new cards every week, month. New content is covered in the lesson and that they can be used as a starter activity to begin revision. Boost your knowledge. Learners can use coursework, handouts, revision and workbooks to revisit the topics covered in class. Study groups. Study groups work for some learners in and outside of school. Learners could set up an online group for sharing information. Sample question papers. Mock papers are a great way to be exam ready and revise. Learners can check your answers themselves or peer assess. Set timers for doing the paper. Create visual mind maps. Show examples of mind maps focusing on specific topics, showing words with prompts to help you recall key information. Wrappers. External assessment wrappers are worksheets containing reflective questions that help learners to think about their performance in a test or external assessment. You could give them to your learners both before and after they receive the results and feedback. The worksheets can be given out before they receive feedback and should ask them to think about how they prepare for external assessment. For example, which study strategies should they use? Those given out after feedback should make the student reflect on their mistakes they've made and how they could prepare differently to ensure greater success in the future, making them use strategies for future learning. Peer teaching explanation. A large body of evidence shows that peer explanation benefits students' learning. In short, peer teaching or explanation occurs when students, by design, teach or explain key concepts or topics to other students. Student teachers enhance their own depth of knowledge in the topic of instructing others. Learners instruct, teach, or explain key topics or concepts to other learners. Challenging questions can be posed, discussed, and then answered again. Student teachers also revise the topic. Topic ranking, metacognitive strategies of evaluating learning. RAG rate key and subject topic headings should include an action plan, completion date, and additional resources. Quadrant grid, question in the center, and then the content in the quadrants, e.g. relevant knowledge, content of the question, evaluation and conclusions. Can use class discussion to encourage high order thinking. Not all students will have the answer for each of the levels, but participating in the class conversations will encourage students to process their thinking at a higher level. If you use the same technique frequently, you will begin to notice which students are using the higher order thinking skills and which ones you could use a little scaffolding to get there. Quizzes. Using sample assessment materials as a guide, create a blank EA, multiple choice questions using indicative content. Why don't you have a go at creating short answer responses and even extended response questions? Your learners can even help with this. For example, a starter activity, end of lesson roundup, and homework. More quick tips for your learners. Again, you could use this table with your learners or adapt to your own. Remind learners to use knowledge gained in the core teaching content and learning in the lesson. The WWWWH shows learners this method, the who, what, where, when, why, and how to support revision in exams. Apply theoretical knowledge and understanding from lessons and in revision notes. Break down the exam question from practice papers. What knowledge do learners need to draw from? What aspects of the question impact on their answers, and evaluating, providing justification for the answers. Prepare and practice for a range of different question styles, long, short, and multiple choice. Prepare by reading the practice paper questions properly and carefully. Guide your learners read the instructions properly. Reading all the questions carefully. Check how many marks are available. Plan each answer before they start writing. Answer the question and then name the key information. Use these quick tips for your learners to use in an exam. Remind learners to stay calm, not to panic and take deep breaths. Remind learners to read the whole task paper. Check what is ahead in all the sections of the paper to get a good idea of how they will approach the tasks. Focus. Make sure your learners can focus on the question and not let their minds wander or panic. A good technique to use is the TGTMIM to get the marks I must. Show learners how to circle or underline the important elements of the question task. Make sure they respond to each of these in the exam questions. This can also be used as a revision technique. Cover the quality of written communication. Remind learners when it comes to written work, try to write in a logical order using well-constructed sentences, showing good use of grammar with few spelling mistakes, and include subject-specific related terminology. Extra sessions on Spark can support this. Guide your learners on making clear points and being able to back it up. When referring to the point, always give reasons for why and how to back it up. There are so many online tools that you can use with your learners. Here are a few that are available, and there are many more. Mentimeter, a great interactive classroom activity. Google Forms, these can be used in lessons and for homework. Flipgrid Flip is a video discussion tool from Microsoft that opens up in the classroom. Padlet.com is best described as an online bullet board. You can choose from many different layouts. The shelf could be useful if you want to put images, links, videos, and more into different categories or heading. For engineering, for example, you could put links to videos or sites for your learners to use for revision or homework. Learners can have discussions on there, or you could get them to include links to the Google Form quizzes you had them make, or their web pages within certain learning content. Or just have your learners make their own Padlet and share it with you. With Kahoot, you can create, share, and play learning games. It's fun, engaging, and easy to create, and you can also add videos, images, and diagrams. It is better in group settings. Players use their own devices, and you need to pin to join the game. Learners can create and share their own challenges. These online tools are not endorsed by NCFE.
Thanks, Beth. So in this last section, I'd now like to talk you through the support that is available to you and your centres and the details of further information and guidance. On our website, in the Qualification Support tab, you'll find everything you need to know about onboarding, quality assurance, using the portal, moderation and assessment, certificates, training events, forms, supports visits, and much more. You'll also find a dedicated area to support the delivery of essential digital skills, functional skills, T-levels, as well as V-certs, including curriculum support and assessment resources. If you're involved in the teaching, assessment and quality assurance of the vCert qualifications, then these pages I think will be the most useful and are detailed on this slide. The first one being delivery support, then assessment support, customer and learner support, and preparing for an EQA. It'd certainly be worth you having a look at these sections on our website to understand better what other support is available. There is also a vCert playlist on our YouTube channel, and there are numerous webinars, CPD sessions and training events which you can access on demand. There are also other demand webinars for key topics such as online teaching tools, revision strategies, formative assessment strategies, safeguarding bite size, domestic abuse, county lines, to name but a few. The provider development team are also here to support staff to ensure that they're prepared to teach the qualification and are clear on the requirements for the delivery and the assessment of the qualification. We also provide tailored one-to-one consultations to meet individual needs of the centre, as well as offering a range of other services such as monthly webinars, training sessions and workshops. Other support that is available includes our external quality assurance team, who can be contacted in relation to anything about quality assurance, such as your annual monitoring review, anything related to questions about the NEA regulations and so on. And of course, our wonderful customer support team, who can help and support with first line inquiries, registration queries and bookings on the portal. You can also email vcerts@ncfe.org.uk with any questions that are specifically related to these new vCert qualifications. So let's just pause here again to take a few moments to consider and complete the plan, do and review. So think about what you've already done, what you'd like to do by the end of today or this session, what you'd like to do by the end of the week, and then what you would like to have done by September. Before we wrap up the session, I just want to briefly recap on what's being covered in today's session. So we have reviewed and provided a summary of year one, including how to prepare for the NEA and what you can expect from our quality assurance process. We've also shared some of our top tips on how to prepare for the external assessment, including some revision strategies and techniques that will boost your learners' exam performance and achievement. Lastly, we've also shared a summary of the resources and support that are available to you in your centres, so that we hope that you're feeling more confident with the NEA and EA for the vCert Technical Award qualifications. We have now reached the end of today's session. If after the session today you do have any further questions, please do visit our frequently asked questions page on our website. And what you'll find is that these questions have been categorised, so it's a lot easier to find the answer that you need. Of course, if you're not able to find the answer you're looking for, then please do feel free to contact us using our general email, which is provider.development@ncfe.org.uk, and your question or query will be directed to the appropriate subject-specific provider development officer. Thanks again, everyone, and on behalf of everyone here at NCFE, we wish you a continued safe and successful year.